Now we turn to the United States. President Joe Biden has held his first formal press conference at the White House. He faced media questions on topics including the vaccine rollout, immigration, gun control and foreign policy. For more on that, let's cross live to our correspondent Jagruti Dave in Washington, D.C. Jagruti, you've been following this very closely. What are the key points from Joe Biden's first press conference as U.S. president?
Well, there weren't the fireworks that we've been accustomed to from a Trump press conference. No altercations with reporters to note. Really what the focus was of this press conference, the first of Joe Biden's presidency, was immigration and the situation at the southern border of the United States. Joe Biden was pressed very firmly on the condition of unaccompanied minors who are put into border detention facilities. There are reports of cramped conditions, overcrowding at some of these facilities, which he was pressed on to answer what he was going to do about them and whether he in fact takes responsibility for the increase in the number of people who are turning up at the US border. He also talked about how he blamed his predecessor for those conditions and also said that the reason for the increase was due to seasonal migration. He also set a new goal of 200 million vaccinations in his first 100 days, upping the goal from 100 million. And he also said that he expects to run in 2024. Again, no real deep questions about the coronavirus pandemic in the United States, which many people have noted. He also, when it comes to foreign policy, pointed to North Korea, saying the situation with Pyongyang is the United States' top foreign policy crisis and has warned of responses if North Korea escalate and continue to launch further ballistic missiles. He also pitched the United States' tensions with countries like China and Russia as part of a global challenge between democracy and autocracy. And he also said that he thought it would be difficult to pull US troops out of Afghanistan by the May the 1st deadline that was set by his predecessor.
And Jagruti, diplomatically speaking, President Biden also joined the European Union virtual summit on Thursday. What came out of that?
Yeah, he joined very briefly via a video conference, and it was the first time a foreign leader had joined in 11 years. The last to do so was former US President Barack Obama. European Council President Charles Michel had billed this as a move to rebuild the transatlantic alliance between the EU and the US, following, of course, its fracture under President Donald Trump. In terms of areas of cooperation, Charles Michel said at a news conference afterwards that it was about the US and the EU's unity in safeguarding global security in the face of threats to the values of democracy and the rules of law. The White House, in a statement, said that the president had expressed his desire to work together on shared foreign policy interests, including China and Russia. There was also talk of trade, of COVID-19, that was also on the agenda. Of course, vaccine exports and distribution is a pretty contentious topic at the moment for the EU, given the criticism by many European voters of the bloc's slow rollout of vaccines. And of course, as I just mentioned, Joe Biden's announcement of increasing the number of jabs he's rolling out to America. Many have seen this as a continuation of the sort of America First policy when it comes to coronavirus rollouts, with many Western countries being accused of kind of looking to their own first and not really thinking about a more global vaccine rollout. But, you know, this is something that obviously the UK, the US and the EU had discussed as part of their alliance moving forward.
Thank you very much. Our correspondent Jagruti Dave in Washington, D.C. Now, for more insight, let's cross live to Mr. Joseph Williams in Washington, D.C. He's the senior news editor with U.S. News and World Report. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Williams. So let's start with Joe Biden's first press conference as U.S. president. What's your impression on his response? Do you think this is just a postponed routine for him, or he actually clarifies some confusion regarding his domestic and foreign policy?
I think overall it was a pretty solid performance by President Biden. He took questions. He answered them. He seemed very prepared. He was not contrasting to his predecessor. He was very disciplined on his message. He did not go off on wild tangents, and that is a significant break from his predecessor, who often would go off on tangents and make news simply by saying something that was off the script. For President Biden, I think it was a mini controversy in suggesting that he had gone so long without speaking to the press in a formal press conference. That's really kind of an inside Washington thing, because the people generally don't care. His approval ratings are still hovering just south of 60%, which is great news for him. And I think overall he came prepared. He had facts. He treated reporters with respect. He called on people and gave his answers with very much discipline and with thought to what kind of message he was trying to communicate to the people as well as allies and people abroad.
What do you make of Biden's appearance at this virtual summit with EU leaders on Thursday? Do you think it's symbolic, or some real issues or differences, gaps have been addressed? Because let's remember, some Trump-era sanctions from the US against some EU countries are still in place. And during his visit to EU and NATO, Secretary of State Antony Blinken threatened more sanctions regarding the Nord Stream 2 project.
Yeah, I think that's his appearance at the virtual appearance at the EU was a little more cosmetic than it was substantive. Certainly it was a gesture towards a reset. They were trying to make sure that the U.S. sends a signal that it is willing to work with its European allies, certainly because of their shared values of democracy, mutual defense, and free trade. That being said, yes, there were some very much contentious issues that have yet to be ironed out, at least at the presidential level with President Biden. He's got to come up with a plan to ease the free trade restrictions or get rid of the sanctions or make a case for keeping them, which he hasn't done yet. He also needs to reset the mutual defense capabilities of the EU after President Trump decided that the EU wasn't pulling its fair weight in terms of finance and in terms of providing troops. So there is some work to be done on the agenda, but right now it is baby steps. We're taking one step at a time. The diplomats behind the scenes are working on the tough, more contentious issues, but for Biden, it's about appearances. It's about being seen, and it's about being seen and being charmed in the company of European leaders that his predecessor used to shun.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joseph Williams in Washington, D.C.